Let us write an algorithm to retrieve the biggest element from a list. So for this purpose we want to write the algorithm. The first step is start. The second step is we have to take the list of numbers given to us. So that I am taking as L. This I am taking as L. So L represents our list of numbers. Initially what I do is, in the list the 0th element is taken as a max initially. That means if you take a list of numbers, L0 is the first number, first element. That element is stored into max. That means I am taking that element as the biggest element. My idea is whichever element is biggest in the list that I want to finally store into max. So first of all, I am taking the 0th element as a maximum element. Next what I do is I will compare this max with other elements in the list. Say for I is equal to L of 0. Okay, I can take from 0th element to L of n, that means last element, do. So what I am doing is I values I am changing from 0th element to last element in the list. That means I represents one by one all elements in the list. Now what I do is I will compare this I and max. If this I, that means any element in the list, is greater than max, then that element will become the biggest element. That means if I is greater than max, then what we have to do? Then we have to store into max that element I. So this is the logic. That means please observe I represents one by one all elements, of the list. So those elements I am comparing with this max, the biggest element. That is the initial element we have taken. So if any element in the list is greater than max, then that element should be stored into max. So finally come out of this for loop and you have to print the biggest element which is stored into max. The last step is stop. So how to understand this logic? Suppose say we have been given some numbers. Say here I am having say we are given these numbers, for example 2, 4, 3, 8, 1. These are the numbers given to us. And this list we are representing by L. L is this list. So the first element 2 is in the 0th position. So this element I can represent by L0. 4 I can represent by L1. 3 I can represent by L2. 8 I can represent by L3. 1 I can represent by L4. Total we are having 5 elements in the list. Total 5 elements I am having. Now what we did is we have taken in the step number 3 in the algorithm, max is equal to L0. That means L0 means 0th element. This element we have taken as max element. Now in the fourth step, I values are changing from L0 to Ln. That means I am taking here I values to represent one by one these elements. That means I represents L0, that means 2, then I represents 4, then I represents 3, 8, 1. So I values are changing like this. They are going on. So first I value will be 2, then 4, then 3, then 8, then 1. Now what we are doing is we are comparing this max with this I value. That means if I greater than max, then I am storing I into max. What does it mean? I am checking this max and this I value, that is 2. If this 2 is greater than this 2, then store this 2 I value into max. No, 2 is not greater than 2. In the next step in the for loop, this max represents, this max is here only, but this I will represent the next element, that is 4. So please observe, in the first step I value is 2. This 2 and max, in max already you have stored 2. These two are compared. This I value 2, if this I value 2 is greater than max, then store this 2 into max. So 2 greater than 2, the max we are having, of course, in the max we are having a 2 already. So this 2 and 2, these two are 2. So 2 greater than 2 is not correct. So this 2 is not stored into max. In the next step, I value will be 4. Now 4 is greater than max. Yes, 4 is greater than max. Then what happens is this max will be adjusted to this place. That means this I value will be stored into max. Now max will refer to 4. In the next step, 3 and max will be compared. 3 and max will be compared. Now, if this I value 3 greater than max, no, this 3 is not greater than this 4. So what happens is 3 is not stored into max. Next what happens? 8 is compared with 4. 8 is compared with 4. Now is this 8 greater than max? That is 4. Yes, 8 is greater than max, that is 4. So what happens is this 8 is stored into this max. That means max refers to 8 now. In the next step, this 1 is compared with max. That means 8. 1 is greater than 8. That means I is greater than max. No, 1 is not greater than 8. Then what happens? This 1 is not stored into this max. So max finally refers to 8. And our result will be this one only. That is 8 only. That is the biggest element in the given list of elements. So what we are doing is, we have taken the first element, this 2 as max, and comparing each element with this 2. If any element is bigger than this 2, then we are storing that element into max. So finally that max represents the biggest element in the list. Let us now put this logic into Python program. To retrieve biggest element in the list or from the list. Let us take the list, that means group of elements. I am taking the sample elements 2, 4, 3, 8, 1. These are the elements I have taken in the list. Now into max you have to store L0. That means the 0th element is taken as maximum element. Why? Because we are starting from here, comparing from here till the end of the list we have to compare. So the 0th element is stored into max. for I in L, that means I values are taken from the list one by one. That means I value will be 2, I value will be 4, I value will be 3, I value will be 8, I value will be 1. Now these elements we have to compare with max. That means I value and max I have to compare. That means if I is bigger than max, that means if I value is bigger than max, then that I value, that element should be taken as max. That means into max I have to store that element. That means if any element is bigger than maximum element, then take that element into max. That means store that element into max. So in this manner, the biggest element, we are comparing every element and storing the biggest elements only into max. So finally you will have the biggest element stored into max. So come out of the for loop and now display the biggest element. So you can type biggest is equal to comma, that is stored into max. So you can display that max value. So here I am displaying print. Print will display the result. It will display this string, that means biggest is equal to comma maximum value, that means max value also it will display. Now save this code, run module. So it is displaying the biggest element in all given elements is 8. So the biggest element is 8 in this list.